game is lame and absurd, but you spit. You need to sit back and observe a certified pimp. So oh yes he is. I mean that boy does the shit. So mess he is. Fresh to death. Ain't nobody fresh as he is. They can't compare or get next to him because he's so fly. I mean the boy's so clean. From his white tee on down to those jeans. You see the ice in the pinky.
All right, what is good, everybody? It's your man, Ken Jackson. This is the Ken Jackson Experience. Unscheduled broadcast tonight because I was feeling myself and thought, hey, let me get on and do something. You know what I mean? So, now that I got the studio put back together and about to tear it down again because I got some surprises in store this weekend, I will keep my fingers crossed. Hope everything works out as planned. So I will let you all know when everything goes down. So anyway, I was on here earlier. I was talking about, people who likes to hire us for services, but they don't like to pay. And that's something I can never really wrap my brain around. You know what I'm saying? When I was managing music artists back in the day, it's been 7 or 8 years since the last artist that I managed before I retired. But a lot of artists that I used to come across would think that management services came with no cost. A lot of times they would think that you're going to manage them and you're going to wait until their career blows up before you start collecting fees or percentages and shit like that. I didn't work on percentages. I just didn't do it. I worked on services provided, and I charged two different ways. I had some flat rates for certain services, but I also had hourly rates. And in my contracts, depending on what contract you signed with me, if it was strictly a management deal, I had certain fees that I would charge, by the hour. All expenses were charged to the artist. Like if I had to travel on their behalf, had to keep track of all phone conversations, between record labels and production companies and such, corporate entities who wanted to license artists' music, for ad campaigns and such. I charged to negotiate those deals, and because my services were not free. A lot of artists would think, oh man, I'll just pay you on the back end when my record blows up or when I get a deal and blase, blase. And no, that's not how it, works. I'm going to get a percentage of the deal that I negotiate for you, but I'm not waiting until you get a deal before I get paid for the services I render. It's expensive, being a music artist, and if you're getting into the music game and you don't have a budget, then don't waste your time, plain and simple. And there are a lot of managers, or people who called themselves managers who would bust their ass for artists, for free. Thinking, okay, yeah, I'll get paid on the back end, and then when the artist blew up, the artist would walk away from him, and act like they didn't know him anymore, which is one why I always operated under contract. And two, like I said, I charged for services, and it was, you know, a month to month basis. A lot of times, so first thing I would always ask an artist, that came to me, what's your budget? Because what your budget is going to determine the type of services you receive. If you want somebody working on your project 24/7, then hey, you got to pay for that. I had bills to pay, and expenses. You didn't, a lot of artists think that you're going to cover all your expenses, for traveling around and going to meet these people here and there. As managers, we spend a lot of time on the road, on the phone, online. Once the internet came about, we spent a lot of time trying to get artists, different deals, and such to, to create an income for them. Because what a lot of artists didn't understand is that they were a business entity. And, part of my job, or part of what I offered was helping them set their businesses up, whether it be an LLC or a full corporation or however they wanted to do it. I would assist them in putting all those pieces in place, getting their business bank accounts established, so that they could collect money in the name of their business or their artistry, and not, as a personal, type situation. Because this is where a lot of artists, got in trouble, especially with the IRS. They would, get out here doing shows and shit, and, a lot of times, if they were fortunate, the shows would pay cash, and obviously they're not going to report cash. But I would tell them, look, even if you got a cash payment, not only ask for, cash, but, do an invoice, to the venue. You know what I'm saying? Let's document and track everything coming in and put it into your business bank account, because eventually Uncle Sam catches up with you, and they will just assume that they would look at all the performances and blase, and they would say, hey, we figure you made this much money. You may not have made $100, but they might say, oh, well, we figure you made, 100,000, touring. Guess what? You got to pay the piper. So it was always good, for, new artists, under my care to, have their businesses established properly. That was a must. And included in that was my service fees, what I'm saying? And from their business account, I would invoice them, and from their business account, they would pay me for what for services provided or services rendered. That's the only way to do business properly. And it's crazy now, because even with all the technology that we have, and, enabling artists to pretty much do it all themselves, they still are not setting up their businesses properly. There are so many artists out here. They're doing performances and, and getting checks, but they're having, no, no structure set up. There's no infrastructure set up, and they're out here, getting money, spending money like crazy. Out here stunting and shit. All on online on camera. And all that's being captured. Excuse me. Then down the road, they realize, oh, somebody was watching. Yeah, Uncle Sam was watching. And guess what? When he comes for his money, he wants it. He wants it right away. No excuses. So I say all that to say this to you independent artists out there. Get your business in order. Set yourself up for success, not failure. If you're thinking of getting into this music industry or the entertainment industry, period, whether you're a comedian or an actor or actress, establish your business entity. Okay, if you're performing under your government name, then form an LLC. Or incorporate your government name. Establish some sort of business entity so that you can get paid properly. You establish your business entity, your business bank accounts, so that when you're collecting money into those accounts, it's not personal money. From your account, you write yourself a paycheck. You put yourself on payroll. You know what I'm saying? I over the years, I saw some very creative ways that young producers and artists, would get money from from the record labels. I remember a time back. I can't remember the artist's name, but he got offered a record deal, and it was a nice amount of money, like $250,000 advance, and that money was going to be for production costs, and it gave him a deadline. We need this album produced, and delivered, by such and such date, and we don't care what studios you use. A&R, A&R people were going to try to get him to work in studios they were affiliated with. But what this young man did was he built his own studio. He set up his business, set up his production company. He built the studio at home, and he took that advance money, and he put it into his business account, and then from his business account, when as he was producing his album, the studio was invoicing his artist business account, okay, so that then the money would go from the advance money he had. He had documentation to show, well, I paid so and so production company, or so and so recording studios for for this, that, or the other, so he would turn those receipts into the record label, and because they didn't give him all the money up front. He would basically have to give them receipts, and then they would send the money, for the money to the studio or production company he was working with. They didn't know that the studio and the production company was his. So he was getting that money, into his production company account or studio accounts, you know what I'm saying? And not spending it out to other studios, so he controlled all of his costs. He controlled all the ones and zeros. And I thought that shit was genius, when it came time, to deliver an album. He delivered an album. He ended up, with all that cash in his bank account, in his business bank account. The label was happy because he delivered a fire record. You know what I'm saying? And then it was up to the label to promote it and this and that. And I believe he negotiated himself a pretty good deal too, as far as maintaining control of the masters, and his publishing and such. But he went on, to be pretty successful on the underground market. He never came out mainstream, but he didn't need to. And over the years I followed him. He did very well, very well. But he had his business in place. And that's what y'all got to do as independent artists. You got to get your business in order. If you can't handle business, you're setting yourself up for failure right out the gate. And this is why so many artists don't make it, because they don't handle business properly. They trust other people to do it all for them. I thought my lawyer was handling that, or I thought my manager was handling that. Yeah, you thought, but you weren't following up. You weren't learning enough yourself about, how businesses operate, and how, things happen, so guess what? You got scammed by the people that you trusted. And I would help a lot of artists, not get caught up like that. But I tell them straight up, pay me. You know what I'm saying? These are my rates. If you came into my studio, these were my rates. There was 2-hour minimums, for booking, and if you showed up, beyond 30 minutes, you forfeited your session. You know what I'm saying? And deposits were non-refundable if you showed up, more than 30 minutes late. It was a bunch of bullshit. And don't get me wrong, I there was a lot of free time that I gave away in my studios. There were a lot of artists that I did let come in, and they got studio credit, based on certain things. But it's crazy because so many independent artists try to take advantage of things like that, and they feel like they're entitled to free services. They feel like, somebody is supposed to be as motivated, about their project, as they are. No. You have to be your own biggest cheerleader, because you're chasing your dream, not mine. I could care less, to be honest, as far as whether or not your record is going to sell 1 million or not, unless I produced it. If I produced it, if I was, one of the composers or the writers or something, then yeah, I'm definitely invested in the success of it. But you're still going to pay me for my services, plain and simple. If I'm spending all these hours in the studio, in my studio, I got to keep the lights on. You know what I'm saying? I have to pay to maintain all of the equipment that I invested. And see, that's what used to crack me up about a lot of artists. They would come in and feel like, yo, Ken, man, just hook a brother up, and no. You see all this equipment in here? How do you think it got here? I had to buy this shit. I got to pay for this shit. I got to maintain it. I got to keep the electricity running so this shit works. You think I'm going to let you come in here and spend 5, 6, 7 hours, and not be compensated for that? Are you crazy? Really? Because if I can't keep the lights on, you can't come here to record. You're going to have to go somewhere else. And hopefully the next person is going to charge you and tell you the same goddamn thing. But, so many small studios went out of business because of that, because artists, weren't paying them and they were letting them slide, letting them get by. And, fuck that. Fuck that. Those types of privileges had to be earned. You know what I'm saying? And if I wasn't invested in your project, I was damn sure wasn't about to, let you just record hours and hours and hours for no money. You know what I'm saying? So that's that. You got to get your business in order, if you want to be successful. And that goes for anything that you're doing, whether you're creative, or what, it doesn't matter. If you're in some sort of industry trying to make a living, you gotta have your budget together because there's certain things you're gonna have to pay for along the way. Every business has to pay for something, you know, and every business has to make money in order to continue to operate. So don't think because a dude has a little home built recording studio at his house that there's no value in it. There is all the value of all the equipment that guy went out and bought. He spent his money to buy this equipment. And then you're asking him to spend time making beats for you, and recording all of this shit and editing it, and mixing it down and all. Pay those people. Pay these producers. And I tell you producers out here, stop giving your shit away for free. Stop letting these artists con you into waiting until their record blows up, because less than less than 1% actually make it to the big leagues. You know what I mean? So you don't want to spend your time, working for this artist and that artist and this artist, and none of them are paying you. How are you maintaining your studio? How are you maintaining, your production business, if that's what you call it? Everybody's in it, to make money. Fuck talking about, oh, I just love the music. And yeah, we all love the music, but we're in this to make a living. You know what I'm saying? And so, don't think that producer dude owes you anything. He don't owe you shit, He don't owe you a damn thing. If you call on that man and say, yo, I want to get some beats, pay for them beats. You know what I'm saying? If you call up and be like, yo, I want to come over and record, pay that man for his time. Straight up. Trust me. You'll come out better in the long run. Because if you're not willing to invest in yourself, you're not going to get anybody else to invest in you. Plain and simple. And that's one of the biggest things I used to have to explain to cats. I'm like, look, how in the hell are you going to walk in here and ask me to spend all this time on your project, not getting any money? You know what I'm saying? Telling me, yo, my shit's going to be big, big, big. I don't care. I need to get paid now. Because if I don't, we ain't in here tomorrow. You follow what I'm saying? And it's not anybody, it wasn't me trying to rob anybody or anything. My rates were fair. Actually, my rates were lower than all the competition. I had lower hourly rates, and production rates were lower. So I'm doing you a favor right there by not charging you what I could have been charging. You follow what I'm saying? So, and it's funny because over the years, like I said, there were a lot of people who used to come into our studio and try to get the homeboy hookup and shit, and fuck that, And now, they're in business for themselves. Some of them, those that lasted, and they're finding out what it's like. Now some of them, call me up and be like, yo, Ken, man, I know what you mean now. Oh, you do? Oh, see? Because you're experiencing that same shit. Excuse me. Excuse me, sorry. Man, still getting over this flu. This cough is just lingering and lingering and lingering. I don't know why, but hopefully by the weekend I'll be done with this crap. I'm going to take some NyQuil tonight so I can at least get some sleep. But anyway, handle your business, y'all. That's the only way you're going to find success in no matter what it is that you're trying to do. And if you're not ready to handle business, then don't waste your time. Don't waste my time. Don't waste shit. Don't waste anybody else's time. All right? Find another career. If you don't have your budget together, get out the music business because you're not going to make it. All right, I'm your man's Ken Jackson. This has been the Ken Jackson Experience, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It's Crazy Baby TV World here on YouTube. And hit me up on TikTok. Also, Crazy Baby TV World. That's where you'll find me, the Ken Jackson Experience. I don't have shit to sell. I don't sell shit. I just talk shit. So until next time, Sunday night, 9 p.m. is my normal broadcast window. So join me. Not sure what the topic is this week. I got to get with my manager, who I pay for her services, and figure out what we're doing. All right. So until then, I will catch y'all next time. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Peace. I'm out.